Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Hi everyone, my name is Chloé Messdaghi and welcome back to another episode of ITSP Magazine's the podcast series called Secure Your Strategy. And with me, I have Debbie. Debbie, tell the lovely people out there who you are.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for Chloe, and thank you for inviting me on this podcast. I really like the stuff that you guys are doing. So my name is Debbie Reynolds. I'm the founder and Chief Data Privacy Officer of Debbie Reynolds Consulting. I work at the intersection of privacy and technology, and I tend to work with organizations that are either developing or implementing some type of emerging technology that has like a higher privacy risk. So that may be AI, that may be metaverse stuff, just all types of wacky things that people want to do with data.
Well, I'm going to just start with the first question, which is, so you're a founder of an organization that goes and helps and improves security. And so the thing that goes through my mind is, how did you even get to that point where you want to start your own consulting business? What were those things that led up to it?
I've been in the data area for well over 20 years with the emphasis on well, right, in air quotes, a long time. And as I was working on my career, all through my career, I've worked with companies on things like digital transformation. So back then it was called transformation. So people were moving from analog systems to more digital systems. And as I started working on that, I worked with a lot of corporations that were doing digital or data moves around the world. So I had to know a lot around data privacy. So, you can do this, but you can't do that. And then people who knew me from that work started calling me about privacy stuff. So one of the biggest companies that was one of the first companies to call me, asked me to talk to them, was McDonald's Corporation. So they heard me speak at a conference and say, hey, why don't you talk to our corporate legal department about this new privacy law in Europe called the GDPR, and it wasn't even out yet. So that was the start. And I thought, I get so many people who call me about this, and it would be cool if I could just do this and not some of the other stuff. So that's why my focus is in privacy or in data.
That's really interesting. So basically, from speaking at a conference, you locked down McDonald's out of all the companies, and that's pretty cool, and got into privacy. And then how did you start growing? Because I know everyone always sees like publicly that whole iceberg situation. Have you seen those graphics where it's an iceberg, but underneath it's like so much others?
Yeah.
But you only see the top part. So what were some of the things that when you made that decision, okay, I want to do this like full time, how do I go about this? What were some of those motions for you? And what was that time process look like for when things started like really moving fast?
Yeah, I would say I started getting this interest. I started deciding that I want to focus directly on privacy in 2014. So between that time, probably about 4 years, I would say, I did like a lot of speaking. I did a lot of writing. There just wasn't a lot of information out there around privacy. So I did a lot of that. I did a lot of those things. And then I think the acceleration happened in May 2018 when the GDPR came out, because I've been talking about it for many years. Hey, this is coming. You need to think about it. And actually, someone from PBS called me and asked me to be on television and talk about GDPR. Hey, this new law is coming out. What do we need to know in the US about it? And people still call me about that interview that I've done on PBS. So it's pretty cool because a lot of my predictions came true.
Okay, so that's really cool. Now I'm gonna have to get that link of that interview and then share it around, by the way.
Sure. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
Okay, so I was just talking to someone earlier today about the pain of GDPR.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way that you have found in a way to help people reduce their stress about thinking about it? Like, what is something that you
Yeah,
find that has
yeah.
simplified it for others?
Well, I find that people are overwhelmed by it. It's not a short law, it's hundreds of pages long, but I think people get overwhelmed about it because they think everything in that law applies to them, and that's not true. So, depending on the type of business you are in, not everything applies to you, and you really need to focus on that and not get overwhelmed. Also, what the GDPR is really trying to do is bring transparency to how companies handle data of individuals. So, if you're fighting transparency, you're going to have problems with GDPR or any other law, right? So I think that's the issue that corporations have, where in the past it's like once they obtained data from someone, they didn't have to tell them what they were going to do with it, and they never had to create that transparency. So I think, stop thrashing about and stop trying to get away from the whole transparency thing. That's like the wave of the future. And that's part of what we're seeing. People vote with their feet, right? Or vote with their money. So their companies are seeing like Apple. I don't think it is a coincidence they have some of their biggest quarters ever once they introduce app transparency, which is, hey, if you want to use someone's data, you have to ask them first. You have to tell them what you're going to do. And so I think, especially the OS makers, definitely Apple, um, uh, Google is trailing about there, but they are definitely trying to create more guardrails for companies and how they use data, and also creating that transparency for users. So, think of GDPR, things like that, not as a tax, but an opportunity to be more transparent.
Yeah, I know as like myself as a buyer, I love to see things that are transparent. So whenever I'm like buying clothes and I'm trying to decide between two different companies, I'm looking into seeing like, well, how were you made? How was it manufactured? Transparency about all of that. The more transparent we can be, I think, especially younger generations are very much about like wanting to know what's in a product and also what their rights are, their privacy. It's interesting to see that like the TikTok conversation is like really taking off these days. Even though I know InfoSec has warned about TikTok for years now, but now it's like really catching up throughout mainstream, I would say. Have you
Yeah.
had a lot of conversations with like family, friends about TikTok?
More conversations just around colleagues around TikTok. I don't have any, I don't know of any family members who are actually using TikTok, but it's a super popular app. I think, countries like India, they a long time ago they banned TikTok. I think even China's trying to ban certain things about TikTok, which is crazy, right? But I think people are really watching the conversation because TikTok or BitDance, they can change the way they operate anytime, right? So that's what regulators really want to do. So I frankly don't see them banning TikTok in the US, but I think that they want to force some changes in how they operate, and that's possible, right?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And what do you see like kind of the future for GDPR in the next year or two, especially with like the rise of AI and chat GPT?
Yeah. Well, GDPR is not going to change. It hasn't changed in the last 5 years. I think people are looking at it a bit differently because as these new tools come out, maybe there are things that did not apply to their company before that now do, based on the types of data processing that they're doing. So I would say take a fresh look at, anytime you're bringing on a new tool or a new technology, chances are it may be touching data in ways that you weren't previously. To me, the parallel I'll make is for companies that never, let's say, for instance, they had time clocks or ways that they check people's time and attendance. Maybe they did it on the internet through forms. Maybe they did it through a punch clock. but some companies are now doing biometrics, whether that be retina scans or thumbprint, things like that. So even though those companies may say, hey, this is a new way to do things, but that creates more risk that you need to really think about. So it isn't a like for like exchange, right? Because you think, oh, I was doing the same thing before, so I implement this new tool, and then I don't have to do anything else, and that's not true. So I think with anytime you're bringing in new technology, anytime you're collecting more data than you have before or in different ways, there may be implications that you had not thought about with these different laws and different jurisdictions based on whose data you have.
And then what are the common issues that you find when it comes to your customers? Like things that you see all the time.
Yeah. I think a common issue, people don't understand the laws that apply to them. So they're like, hey, I didn't know this applied to me. And I think in the US it's even harder because it's like, oh, Illinois does something different than California. So I have to change what I'm thinking about. Or there are 2 new laws that are coming on board and on the state level, and I have customers in those states. So how is that going to impact me? So I think a lot of times people are shocked about how they have to make those changes and they're not aware. So they may be on autopilot in some way. And this is especially the case with companies who are using marketing. So maybe they, over the years, built like this huge, complicated marketing thing. It works really well. But now some of the things that work really well that they had done in the past, maybe they're no longer legal. So you have to really look all the way through your stack to see, what is it that we're doing, how we're using data, the people, like maybe you're using a third party company, ask them how they comply with these laws or how they're going to help you comply with those laws. I think those are all great questions to ask. And I think I see a lot of companies get in trouble. I think we saw like a Sephora settlement. It was like the first enforcement action from California was CCPA. It was only $1 million, but a lot of my lawyer friends, they were like just totally up in arms about this whole Sephora thing. And people always talk about it, right? Because it was like the first enforcement. This Sephora got in trouble for some like automated advertising that they had always done and had never changed, and they should have changed or should have looked more closely at what they were doing, so that they could comply. So I think one of the biggest problems that companies have is like they think, oh, if I just continue doing what I'm doing, then I'll be fine. And it's like, well, no, because the regulations are changing. So you need to take a closer look at what you're doing and make sure that you're in line with the regulations.
Yeah, I have to admit, I think one of the things that irritates me the most, I've had a couple of incidents where there's no unsubscribe buttons in an email and it's spam. And I'm just like so frustrated because I'm like, stop sending me this. I don't want this. And there's nowhere to unsubscribe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really bad one because like unsubscribe has been around forever. Like there's like no way on the word. I get those too, where I'm like, why am I getting this? I hate this. So in the US, we have mostly been a notice country where unlike the EU where they have to consent, they have to have an opt-in, so that you have to opt into marketing. In the US, you don't. So you get a lot of stuff because they know that they can do it and there's no law against sending you stuff. And then some people don't want to, maybe they think, oh, we're small, no one's going to report us or something, and we don't have an unsubscribe button and we'll be annoying. But any and all places, companies should have unsubscribe, period. So especially definitely in the US and especially in other countries, I don't think that, I just personally think the companies that don't have that, they just think, oh, well, I'm going to fly under the radar. No one's going to like call me out on this or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's like this one in particular that I keep unsubscribing, but it's still subscribing me. It's like because there's like 25 different things to unsubscribe. And I hit each single one, but then there's these other ones you have to go somewhere else, and it's so frustrating. Like, I look forward to having more of the European way of life here when it
Yeah.
comes to this stuff.
And, I'm looking forward to, I'm looking at a couple of tools that are really interesting that hopefully can help with this, because it really shouldn't be you as a consumer's responsibility to go in and like uncheck 25 boxes and then try to fight your way out of this. Because, it's basically you against the machine. So you can't really outfight like these AI systems, and they make it super hard for you to opt out, which is a huge problem in the US, where in Europe, they're trying to pass laws where they're saying, hey, the way people opt in and they opt out should be just as simple. So they can opt in with one button, they should be able to opt out with one button. So I'm hoping we have more stuff like that here in the US.
Do you find that California is trying to go that direction at this time?
California hasn't really addressed this particular issue. They're just saying, if you there's no opt-in unless you're a child. So opt-in consent is for children, even though next year they have a law that's coming in place where they're going to make opt-in required for, right now it's required federally for anyone under 13, right? Now in California, in California and a couple other states, they're going to try to make it 18. So from 13 to 18 was a big deal, right? So
Yeah.
this is the TikTok, the Facebook, Instagram folks. This is like the hot audience that all these, gamers and stuff like that. So they're probably pulling their hair out right now that they have to do opt-in, which is really hard, right? But the Europeans have done it and they do it for everybody. So we shouldn't like be so upset about that. But I'm hoping to see, I'm hoping to see more focus on opting in as opposed to opting out, because I think that definitely gives people more power. And that's what Apple has done with their app transparency, done it in an opt-in fashion. And so they were like the first to move in that direction. So I'm hoping to see other companies move in that direction. Not yet seeing states do that, except to focus on children.
Okay. Do you think like the future is going to be basically everyone's going to have check marks, and like on social media where everyone has to verify with their photo ID at some point with all the bots and impersonations of other folks?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Well, I don't think so, because I think I think what's going to happen is the consumers are going to have to weigh the pros and cons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you download like an app that you're only going to use for 20 minutes, like you probably wouldn't want to give them your ID. You're like, who are you? Like, why would I trust you with this, right? But maybe a service where maybe a company that you work with where you have multiple services with, maybe you'd be willing to do that type of identification. You know what I'm saying? So let's say Amazon. So let's say you have Amazon Prime, you have video, you order stuff, maybe you go to Whole Foods or something like that, and they say they want to do, they're not going to force you to do this identification, right? But maybe they'll say, hey, to make your account more secure, or we'll give you like a $10 coupon, why don't you verify yourself? I can see those companies do that. But, for the most part, companies pretty much know who you are. And I feel like if they're asking for your ID or something like that, it's more of a data grab, in my view, as opposed to, they know. I mean, they know that you went and had coffee this morning. You know what I'm saying? So they know exactly who you are. So
That's very true, because like I travel internationally, and the thing I remembered was like a couple of years ago, you would have to alert your credit card. So on your app or something. Now I do it, and I'm like, it's like, you don't need to do this anymore because we know it's you using the card. I'm like, okay, so it is knowing everything that you're doing and the coffee you had this morning and all that. I think like one of the interesting things is so in Oakland, Whole Foods there, they now have like fingerprinting. So if you want to do fingerprints, then you don't have to pull out your credit card or ID or anything. You just need to have fingerprints. So now you go up to the cash register and you just put your hand on it right before it. I haven't done it, and it's
Mhm.
really interesting because I don't think it's very successful in Oakland because people are already nervous as it is to give away information like that. So, but I know they started doing it in New York City and other metropolitan areas.
Yeah, they tried to do it a couple places here in Chicago, and we were like, nah, no, we don't like that. And I've seen a couple of shops in some airports where they're like, oh, we're cashless,
Oh
and
yeah.
you come in and you give us your biometrics, and those are very empty stores, I think. 'Cause people are like, that's not worth it. All I want is like a cupcake, and I don't want to have to give this information, right? But then also, I guess one other practical thing that maybe companies aren't thinking about is that, you know, with COVID, people don't want to touch stuff, right? So you don't want to touch anything.
No.
So I think that'll be really a hard sell, especially in just a regular consumer sense. It would have to be something like going to Fort Knox or something where they're gonna scan your eyeballs or something like that. But anything that you have to touch, I don't think it's like gonna be very successful.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wish that, people still continue to wash their hands after using their public restroom.
That's right.
Yeah. Because so I thought this was the most hilarious thing was the fact that at men's restrooms, like during COVID time, it took just as long for them to use it as women were in their restrooms because they were washing their hands. And then now they are like, there's no line really. Like I think they said like 30% of people actually wash their hands in the men's restroom. And I'm just
Oh my
like, oh my
God.
God. I just think of RSA conference is shaking all these like fancy
Yeah.
hands and just being like, oh my God, I
Yeah,
wish I didn't know
exactly.
this.
That's so bad. That's so bad. I could have probably assumed that, but that's such a bad statistic. Come on, people.
We didn't learn anything from the pandemic, clearly, Debbie. Like clearly. But yeah, you're right. I don't want to touch anything. Like
Yeah.
and yeah, and I wonder if they're gonna take away the whole thing at the Whole Foods in Oakland because I haven't seen anyone use it at all.
Yeah. Well, I will say one thing, Amazon is very persistent. So if they can't do it one way, they'll do it another. Maybe they'll do facial recognition, but
Yeah,
that's less accurate, right?
yeah,
But
definitely.
I'm all about the touchless. Maybe if they had created that with the Apple thing, they would be more in favor of it. Like I like that, pay with my
Yeah.
phone or pay with my watch or do the proximity card, not have to stick anything in. So I think that's better.
I look forward to the day where you don't have to bring your wallet, period. Like so in California, we don't have a digital ID yet that we can use.
Right.
Like if you go to a bar or anything like that. So you're still
Mhm.
lugging that wallet with you, which seems heavy in
That's
California.
right. That's right. It sort of messes up when you want those little cutesy purses and stuff. Can't
Yeah,
fit your wallet
you
in there.
can't.
Can't fit your
Yeah.
wallet in your account. Can't fit like two or three things in it.
No, it can fit your cell phone, maybe, just
Yeah.
maybe. But you're going through your wallet, like, what cards do I need to bring with me today? Because I only have 2 slots.
I
Two
know. I have a
slots.
friend. She brings she loves these teeny purses, and I tease her. I'm like, what the hell can you put in that thing? So she actually has like a backup purse with like everything in it, and then she has the little teeny one that she can kind of run around with. But I'm like, I can't. My wallet will not fit in those.
No.
Not
No,
at all.
definitely not. This is why we need pockets in her like pants that actually fit cell phones and also like dresses. I know at anytime I
Yes,
have a dress and there's pockets, I am totally showing that off because it works so well and
absolutely. I don't know why women's clothes don't have pockets. It's like we need pockets. Oh my God. We probably carry less purses if we have pockets.
maybe that's the reason they want to make sure we still buy purses.
Yeah.
We still need to spend our money on purses. Oh my God. It's a
That's so
conspiracy
true. It
theory
is a
here.
conspiracy. Right. The guys, their pants have 5 or 6 different pockets. They probably have 10 pockets on any given day, and I don't have one.
No. And it's great because
So,
sometimes when you get those jeans, they're like, oh, great. And then you wear it and you're like, oh no, these are the fake pocket jeans.
right.
Why? And then you check the back pockets and those are like super tiny and they also are like fake pockets. And you're just like, I don't understand. Who thought about this?
I
It was a
know.
terrible idea.
Well, I know some people, they wear, the girls sometimes they'll have, if they have a pocket, it's too small, right? So they have a back pocket and they try to put their phone in it, but it's halfway hanging out. Like someone's
Yeah.
gonna like take it from you.
Right, exactly. Like you put it in your back pocket because that's the only pocket it fits, but then like someone's gonna come from behind and then you're just gonna be like, okay, whose wrist am I twisting today? Like this is
That's
what's gonna
right.
end up happening.
That's
Oh,
right. That's right. Yeah, someone needs to get on that problem quickly.
yeah,
Quickly.
that's a big one.
It is a huge one. Guys don't understand. This is like a
Yeah.
big deal. Oh
No,
my
they don't
God.
even have to wash their hands apparently
No.
without feeling shame like we would have to.
So funny. I'm gonna think about that when I'm at the next conference. Oh my goodness.
Uh, okay, so Debbie, back on privacy here, which is what state do you think is doing the best when it comes to protecting consumers at this time?
Good question. I think the typical answer would be California in the US because they're doing so much, which they are, right? And I think they've been very progressive over the last, I don't know, 50 years, I would say. So yeah, they can definitely get a vote for that, for being very comprehensive in the way, or they've been dealing with privacy in layers. So now they have like a layer cake of privacy of all these different laws, which is cool. But the state, and maybe I'm just being having my favorites because I'm from Chicago. So probably my favorite privacy law in the US is the Biometric Information Privacy Act. And it's probably the most hated law by companies because it has a private right of action. You don't have to show that you've been harmed in any way. So the harm is that someone's misused your biometric information. The fines are pretty high. I think it's like over $1,000. I always forget what the number is. It's pretty high. So it's like the number is like, let's say $1,000 times every time someone collects your biometric. So if you have a job and you work and you use a punch in time clock, if they misuse your data, you could get $1,000 times, or whatever the number is, times how many times you did that. That's another reason why corporations don't like that law. Um, uh, Employees are not exempted. So a lot of privacy laws, if you work for a company, you don't have those rights, right? And so Illinois, you do. We've seen a lot of companies like Facebook. Facebook was the first one to pay like the biggest fine, or actually the biggest settlement for BIPA, which was $650 million for the state of Illinois. And as a result of that, they stopped collecting biometric face scans of people in that way. So to me, it's been very influential. It's definitely made changes. A lot of people still hate this law, even though it's about the simplest law you've ever seen. It's like 4 pages. It's basically saying, hey, people have rights. People are humans, right? So it's not just a consumer law, it's a human law. So you don't have to be a consumer of someone to actually get damages under this law. People's biometrics can't be changed, and they should be protected, and you have to be transparent. That's like all it is. And like people are like going crazy about it, right?
That transparency.
Right. I think a part of the reason why companies don't like it is because it's very different from the typical way people think jurisprudence is done. So it's like, hey, you have to let the person know before you collect the data, what you're collecting it for, and how long you're going to retain it. And so again, this goes back to companies who never had to do that, right? They're like, okay, let's collect it, and then let's not tell people how we're going to retain it or whatever. And that's how Facebook ended up in this quandary. That's a very simple thing to say, I think. I'm going to collect your data for X, and I'm going to keep it until Y, and that's it. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of times when we have these conversations around like TikTok, for example, I think a good number of people also tend to forget about all the things that Facebook has done in the past when it came to like data privacy and also Instagram, like all those have been guilty at some point of collecting something that you didn't want them to collect or you didn't know that they collected.
Yeah. Meta or Facebook or Instagram, they've been influential in privacy regulation in probably a way that they didn't anticipate, which was whenever they had these issues or infractions, or organizations or jurisdictions started to create laws against the things that they had done, basically. So Facebook was often in trouble with third-party data transfer. So data collected by Facebook or Meta and sent to someone else by some means or whatever. And almost any law you can think of right now that's been created, probably since 2018, I would say, has something in it around third-party data transfer. So that's like a big issue. And I think a lot of that is because of Facebook.
I can't stand those third-party resellers of all the data. Oh my God. I don't know. Anytime you search your name or something like that, and it shows up where you live, your phone numbers, like it's so aggravating to see that. And I really give kudos right now because Google, they now have it so they have a beta going on right now that you can actually tell it to remove it because it contains personal data, which is awesome.
Yeah.
We need more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Especially some place like Google where the majority of people who do searches on the internet use it. So that's like a huge thing.
Definitely. Okay, so Debbie, what is the one thing that you wish that every CISO knew about data protection?
I think, oh my goodness, can I name one?
You can name one or you can name two.
Okay.
I'll make it easy.
Let me say, let me do two then. So one is, I think what every CISO should know is that doing cybersecurity doesn't cover privacy. And a lot of people think that. They think, oh, once we do cybersecurity stuff, then, we have privacy covered. And it's just not. These things are not the same. They have a symbiotic relationship, but they are not the same. So a lot of times people, especially in the US, they confuse cyber with privacy and they are not the same at all, right? So I tell people, think about cybersecurity as like, let's say you have a bank. So cyber is protecting outside the bank, inside the bank, who's in the bank, who's doing what in the bank, right? And privacy is about what's in the vault and why it's in there. So cyber can't do that, right? Because you're not as entrenched in those details. And it's very, very much based on humans, not necessarily in the data of humans, right? That's what privacy is about. Where cyber is protecting all data, right, of a corporation, regardless of whether it's human or not. And then I think the other thing I would say is that privacy isn't just a legal issue. Companies, they have privacy issues. I say privacy is a data issue that has legal implications. It's not a legal issue that has data implications. So if you think of it that way, then you'll have the right mindset about how to attack that problem.
Well, thanks, Debbie, for being on here. This was a lot of fun. I have to get you back on here again, especially if there's any privacy changes that happens or whatever happens next with social media or anything like that. Or the return of the hand washing, we find out the statistic is a little bit better, hopefully, by then.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Happy to be here. And thank you for inviting me.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And I'll catch you at the next episode. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you learned something new and this story made you think, then share ITSP Magazine with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our columns. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.